Hello. I know you're all here because of TED Talks. Me too. I'm a long-term TEDster and I'm a major fan. And I'd like to explore with you where we can go in our efforts to connect with each other using the spoken word across time and space, even when we're not in the same room. You know, first, human beings have come pretty far with this. We started with megaphones, and then we finally got audio technology so that we could hear people speaking even if they weren't with us. And then we got movies and television so that we could see people speaking as if they were in our living room. And now online video so that you can experience TED Talks wherever you want them, whenever you want them. I'd like to explore with you where this train is going, including how TED Talks can become TED Conversations. How by combining the rules of conversational skill with digital technology, we can do something more than even the cool thing that already happens with TED Talks, which is that we can spread worthy ideas, perhaps even yours, to the world. But by combining technology with conversational skills, I believe that someone like you as a TED speaker can build such universal emotional resonance around whatever the topic is that you have, that you will invite us in to engage with you so that we co-create together something even more amazing, even more powerful than you had in mind when you started us on that route. You know, we've all been talkers. Around the world, everyone, by the age of 2, learns how to talk. But only a small minority of people, even well into adulthood, ever learn to converse. And the disparity between talk and conversation can mean the difference between a job interview and a job, a date or a decision to marry, or even an idea and the creation of something truly provocative, a product, a service, a new direction that can transform a company. Creating the kind of scintillating, memorable wow exchanges that result in innovation and leave the participants transformed is a powerful skill. And it can be acquired by individuals and by companies too. And these days when we're surrounded by chatter and we crave really authentic connection, that skill can be really a strategic advantage. Now, the process that turns a string of words, because you know they're just noises, they're utterances, the process that turns that string of words into a conversation is what Michael Oakeshott tells us distinguishes the human being from other animals and the civilized person from the barbarian. Now, I know that every person you meet isn't going to change you, but I do believe that the conversations you have in your life become milestones, that you can measure the way you've lived by the people with whom you've had a conversation and what it was you talked about. And behind every innovation lie many conversations. So, what distinguishes conversation from talk? Well, talk is telling. It's the transfer of information in a one-way process. You tell me something. You make a presentation. You do a TED Talk. Powerful, but a one-way process. Now, conversation is a collaborative discussion between at least 2 people. It can be thousands. That is a catalyst for change. Something new can be created that didn't exist before. It's what innovation is all about. And each participant is changed, altered in some way by the experience. This isn't chat. This isn't gossip. It's not a free-for-all. It completely engages you, and there is no multitasking. It's no coincidence that in the English language, at least, the word intercourse is used to define both sexual union and conversational exchange. Makes sense. Both sides give, both sides get. But more than that, just as in sexual intercourse, great conversation holds the potential for co-creation. They both require experimentation and practice. Not all sex is great. Not all conversations are great. So what ensures that a conversation has at least the potential to be great? Well, I believe with Theodore Zeldin, who's the conversational scholar, that to have a great conversation, you must enter it with the intent to be changed by it. Now, what gets in the way? Well, Deborah Tannen tells us that we are locked in an argument culture. Our spirits, she says, are corroded by living in an atmosphere of unrelenting contention. And she said that in 1998. Somehow in America, I have really never experienced anything quite like this in my lifetime. But it's true in France. They're striking in France. Well, they always strike in France. But England, South Korea, rural Chinese villages, everybody seems to be angry at someone, and some people are mad at everybody. Now, Plutarch said that anger is worse than undiluted wine in producing undisciplined and disagreeable results. For some people, this is the winter of our discontent, as Shakespeare said. And the problem is that when anger takes the lead, conversation's impossible. Because angry people don't have an intent to change. They want everybody else to change. Now, I confess, I understand this my way or the highway kind of thinking because I was there. I've been there. I was brought up with no television set in our house because my parents felt that a TV set killed conversation, especially over dinner. Well, I have to tell you, I resented the heck out of it. And as a young adult, I was not interested in conversation. I liked advocacy. I liked getting my own way. When I applied to go to Stanford Law School, one of my aunts said, well, that makes sense. She's been arguing all her life. She may as well get paid for it. But truly, it was all about my winning and somebody else losing. And at some point, I tired of using language as a weapon, where the parties kind of put a stake in the ground and then dare someone to cross that point. So by some coincidence, I ended up giving up that kind of life and going into the mediation of business disputes. And I was totally really not prepared or even trained to do this well in the beginning. Because I used the skills I had, which was I used the force of my will to get people to come to a resolution. But almost by accident, I learned that if we treated mediation as a conversation, amazing things happened. Each of the parties would come in, of course, with their own idea about how this could be resolved. I did too. But it turned out that by approaching it with the intent to be changed by it, together these parties would create something they hadn't envisioned that was more innovative, more creative, and frankly, better. That hooked me on the use of language, conversation as a strategic tool. And I now believe that face-to-face conversation is the new luxury. Now, why don't we all use it then? Well, this great, which you can't see too well probably, is Fast Company Design did this marvelous graphic that shows what they've determined are the 28 current different ways that you can communicate online with other people. And that's and counting. They call them 28 methods of conversation. Frankly, I think very few of them rise to conversation, but it lets you know that there's a lot of competition for being face-to-face. So we think hard about who we're going to spend face time with. You thought hard about coming here. So if it's such a luxury, why do we so often squander it? Well, people haven't brought up to value conversation. They don't know the rules. There are more books about how to have great sex than there are about how to have great conversations. And there are very few examples for us to turn to. Politics, probably not, except for one exception. Bill Clinton has so honed his curiosity that he says every person with whom he comes in contact, he tells himself that that person may have something important for him to learn. So he's a natural conversationalist. What about other media? Well, at least in our country, we don't have conversation shows, we have talk shows. And they are either empty or angry. And our schools are talking and telling machines. They, in fact, discourage collaborative discourse and really make it difficult for kids to become terribly innovative. So This should tell you that if you personally learn the skills of effective conversation, you become an example yourself because you'll be fairly rare. Now, corporate leaders have determined that they need to repair the failures of connection, especially now that they're in a global business. They want to jumpstart innovation. So how do they do that? How do they turn on the conversation faucet? Well, unless they're really small and can get everybody in the same room, they can't do it really face-to-face. So the fact is they can use technology. And how do they do that? Well, they have to turn to their talk system. What's a talk system? Well, it's my word for explaining, you know, if you think of the family in which you grew up, there was a talk system. There probably still is. Because it's the thing that's handed down and you know intuitively what's taboo and what can be talked about. Whose comments are respected and which ones are totally ignored. Well, just as in a family, every enterprise, big or small, has a talk system. Think of it as the circulatory system in a business. All the discourse, online, offline, structured, casual, it's what bridges people on projects. If we consciously engineer a talk system, it can be a potent means for promoting productivity and innovation, and even a vehicle to drive change. Now, some business leaders say, oh, great, I'd love to round up all the employees and talk to them. So they use IM, they use teleconferencing, they use events, they love events, they use newsletters, but those aren't conversations, that's telling. And when you talk to them about having a conversation with all employees, that is a very scary area. Chaotic, uncontrolled, and my God, what will those employees say? But there are some companies that have ventured into this arena. You may know that almost 10 years ago now, IBM took the bold step to put together what they called a values jam, to which they invited their employees. 50,000 people took part. They redefined the core values of the company. It hadn't been done in 100 years. And they redefined the relationship between employers and management. Now, what is a jam? Well, a jam is just a big collaborative discourse that acts as a catalyst for change. It harnesses the creativity and innovation of a large group of people on a specific topic. It's really focused conversation for a practical outcome. People were changed. In fact, IBM leadership was blown away by what happened when they tapped into the natural creativity and passion of their own people who wanted to make the place they work better. So they've done 2 more of them. And one of them, on innovation, had 150,000 people participating. They co-created new products and services, and 10 new businesses came out of that with $100 million total funding. It's not crowdsourcing. This is a selected, invited group around a core topic, and it's not just an event. But it also creates a community that didn't exist before. Now, the companies that have done this tell us there are major challenges. This is still evolving. For one thing, data analytics are really quite important as to how do you determine real time what the essence of this conversation is, because you don't direct it. It is something that's being created by the parties. And also, what do you do afterwards to net the core ideas really rapidly because you plan to execute? And the transition of the community that you've created is essential so that you can ensure that it continues to generate value. What is sure is that the companies who have experienced this kind of conversation among their employees say people don't seek a message, they seek an experience, and they want to be part of the conversation. So what does this have to do with TED? Well, last summer, Chris Anderson said, he pointed out that the printing press with the Gutenberg Bible really exploded communications in a brand new way for humankind. And his view is that online video will have that same explosive kind of impact, in fact, greater. I agree with Chris. Certainly regarding physical activities. One kid watches somebody break dance on a video, they try it, they do more steps, I mean, voila, expert break dancers. Scientists who can demonstrate a scientific experiment can do amazing things very quickly without having to explain it with the written word. Chris goes on, though, to say that concepts can do the same thing, and ideas, because he says, you know, you can see the speaker's gestures and their body language and the audience reaction and the passion of the speaker. Here's my concern. I'm hoping that we don't just spawn a lot of really slick, skilled TED talkers. I'd like us to be able to generate TED conversationalists who are so good and so passionate about their topic that they get us involved so that real time together, we co-create something that they started so that the end of it is a TED conversation that we helped shape. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, TED speakers need to learn conversational skills. So do our audiences. And beyond TED, I believe that conversational skills training should be taught in every school in the world. I believe that business leaders, we should demand of them that they engage everyone in conversation, their customers and their employees. I think business schools should teach conversational skills, not just public speaking or presentations. And coffee houses, I mean, should be real coffee houses where people go not just for the coffee, but to engage in conversation on topics of major importance to them. So in companies, if they were to teach conversational skills, they could have collaborative discussions that result in innovative stuff all over the company and have their own jam. I believe TED can create the format for this so that people just don't watch. They actually come to create the change. Let's let TED audiences help shape that change. So how about you? I'm hoping that you'll engage your own family and your friends in true conversation, face to face. You choose the topic that is meaningful to you and then get out of the way of the result. I hope you'll change your place of business, your place of work into a conversational company. Ban all meetings. No more meetings. Instead, I'm hoping that you'll invite people to a conversation. You give them homework to do before they get there. You tell them they're expected to really participate. And then the compensation of your company should be in some way geared to people's ability and interest in collaboratively discussing stuff to get to innovative things. And how about our schools? I hope you'll go to schools and say, you've got to teach these kids collaborative discussion. Kids are naturals at social networking, so let's harness that enthusiasm so they become part of the conversation, shaping what they learn instead of just rote learning that they're responding to what somebody else tells them. And finally, I hope you'll let TED know that you'd like to turn TED Talks into TED Conversations. Thank you.